feel like as a black woman, you feel like you shouldn't get it because it's not like for you, but so far I feel like it's really for everybody. Like anybody can rock the bag.
Katia Mark says the bag suits anyone's style.
I definitely am glad to see that it's everywhere I go now, kind of. It's a little bit more, everyone's copying, doesn't matter what color, what size anybody's wearing. The actual person, not just the bag, they're wearing it and they're rocking it to whatever style they got.
The bags are just one among the many items Telfar produces. They recently introduced wallets made of real leather, which sold out within minutes. Precious Fondren, WNYC News.
WNYC supporters include the Bruce Museum in Greenwich, Connecticut, which has completed an expansion that more than doubles its size, adding galleries for art and science and new education and community spaces. Grand opening April 2nd. More at brucemuseum.org.
On the next Brian Lehrer Show, stories from women who are working in traditionally male professions, like plumbing and construction. Plus, what's at stake for reproductive rights after a hearing in Texas on a commonly used abortion medication. The Brian Lehrer Show, weekdays at 10 a.m. on WNYC.
The Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC News Hour on 93.9 FM. Let's check in with London to see what they're working on. Good morning, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Razia Iqbal. On today's News Hour, we hope to speak to the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan. Credit Suisse Bank gets a bumper $50 billion loan from the Swiss Central Bank, and we speak to the wife of the leading Russian dissident, Vladimir Kara-Murza, who faces a possible 20 years in jail for treason. BBC News Hour coming up at 9 on 93.9 FM, WNYC.
We'll see mostly sunny skies for this Thursday with highs in the mid-50s. For tonight, mostly clear this evening, then turning partly cloudy overnight with lows in the lower 40s. And the clouds stick around tomorrow with a slight chance of showers in the afternoon. Highs in the upper 50s. It's 37 degrees and mostly fair in New York City.
At least this morning, authorities in Europe have contained one bank problem.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by UKG, an HR payroll and workforce management solution designed to help make a fairy tale workplace a reality. UKG, our purpose is people.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. Markets are calmer today after Swiss authorities stepped in to backstop a major global bank, Credit Suisse. Today, that bank's stock is up 20%. My UK-based marketplace colleague, the BBC's Leanna Byrne, has more.
In the early hours of the morning, the Swiss Central Bank and financial regulator moved to reassure investors it would help, offering Credit Suisse a $54 billion loan. Its strong support for the bank reflects the lender being a systematically important bank both in Switzerland and globally. Credit Suisse itself says it's taking decisive action to strengthen its finances. These assurances seem to have helped. For now, the bank's shares are on the rebound. The question is whether investors are scrambling to find out if there are any other banks with equally major problems. I'm the BBC's Leanna Byrne for Marketplace.
Stock index futures in the U.S. are mixed. S&P futures are down 0.2% now. NASDAQ futures are up 0.1%. Now for a teachable moment on what economists call moral hazard. It's the worry that people are more likely to drive like knuckleheads if they have car insurance, but the banking system version. Part of the response to the runs on Silicon Valley and Signature banks was to try to calm the rest of the system by allowing all banks to easily borrow money against their government bond holdings. Bonds are quite safe, but they're hard to unload in a hurry when interest rates are going up as they are now. I'm referring to the Federal Reserve's Bank Term Funding Program. But will the Fed saying, banks, we've got your back, encourage them to take dangerous risks? Let's get some insight into this by turning to Joseph Wang, Chief Investment Officer at the investment advisory firm Monetary Macro. Thanks for helping us.
It's a pleasure to be here, David.
Just so people understand, this new system is, hey bank, if a lot of depositors come by for their money at once and you can't handle the sudden flow, you banks can borrow from us, the central bank, automatically to cover things like the bonds in your portfolio. But they're government bonds. If you hold them to maturity, they'd be worth the full amount. Isn't this Fed system just helping those banks buy some time?
Well, one of the basic principles of any bank is to manage interest rate risk. Now, a bank has to manage both their assets well so that they don't have too much interest rate risk, but also their liabilities as well, such that you won't have all these depositors come and ask for their money back at the same time. And they have a lot of tools to do this. And as you can see, as the Fed raised rates, the banking system as a whole was fine. But to your point, interest rate risk is an important component of any asset management. What you're doing is you're basically socializing that away.
And you object to it philosophically, but it sounds like you also object to it in a practical sense. Why is it a problem beyond the philosophical objection?
What you're really doing right now is, in a sense, you are allowing banks to not have to worry about their interest rate risk. And that encourages, I think, irresponsible behavior. The way that a market economy works is that if a business does a good job, we want it to succeed. And if a business does a bad job, we don't want it to succeed. But what we're doing right now is we're saying that you can go and, you don't even have to care about your interest rate risk at all. And what we're suggesting too is you don't have to worry about your depositors as well, because the Fed or the government will bail them out.
I can see. I mean, if Bank X is poorly run and has made risky choices, you would like to see it get a comeuppance. But the thing with banking is there can be this contagion, and you could get other people worried about other banks that are practicing safer practices affected by the first bank's predicament, and it ruins it for everybody.
You're exactly right. Bank contagion is very real because there's a big psychological component to this. If you're a depositor and you see one bank fail, you might get worried and start to withdraw money from your own bank. And your own bank, even though it's fine, it just can't handle all that. So this is an age-old problem, and it was a particularly big problem in the great financial crises when we actually had many important banks fail. But we've made the banking sector a lot safer. There have been tremendous changes to the banking sector. So I think the banking system today is much stronger than it was before. And so it would have been able to withstand the failure of a regional bank without having runs.
Joseph Wang is Chief Investment Officer at the investment advisory firm Monetary Macro. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, David.
Beyond Silicon Valley and Signature Banks, a third mid-sized one is being scrutinized carefully by depositors and investors. The credit rating of First Republic was cut down to junk status yesterday by both two rating services. Today, Bloomberg News, citing unnamed sources, is reporting that among the options First Republic is considering is finding a larger rival to buy it up.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by the Slowdown podcast. Join award-winning poet Major Jackson, the newest host of The Slowdown, for a hand-picked poem and a moment of reflection every weekday.
Another big story this week, the Biden administration is proposing the first standards aimed at making drinking water safe from so-called forever chemicals, also known as PFAS chemicals. They're found in everything from waterproof clothing to now toilet paper. Marketplace's Lily Jamali reports.
The proposal would place enforceable limits on forever chemicals for the first time, according to the EPA's Eric Bernison.
This is really a historic moment. The agency has been working for some years now to develop this proposed regulation.
Bernison says the same properties that make forever chemicals so useful also mean they linger in the environment and in the human body and can cause serious health problems, including cancer.
I want to applaud the EPA for coming out with sensible limits to these forever chemicals.
Yvonne Taylor is with the environmental advocacy group Seneca Lake Guardian. It's based in the New York State Finger Lakes, which provide drinking water to 1.5 million people.
Fish in many of these waters contain high levels of forever chemicals. So if it's in the fish, it's in our drinking water.
But the American Chemical Council, an industry trade group, says it worries about compliance costs, which could be in the billions of dollars. For utilities, supply chain concerns also loom large, says Stephanie Schley of the Association of State Drinking Water Administrators.
Are they going to have the materials needed to get all of this up and running in time for the compliance date of the rule?
Nevertheless, she says the EPA's proposed standards provide a new clarity and consistency. I'm Lily Jamali for Marketplace.
And the 10-year interest rate remains low by this year's standards, 3.44% now. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio, and we are from APM, American Public Media.